Just examples.
6-1, day
6-2, day 2. And we are going to end it here. This should be it as far as something that might show up on the ACT. And we're just solving equations. We're going 0 to 360, so I'm going to stick with degrees. Just read the directions, whether you're in degrees or radians. I feel like this is large. I do too. Well, that one's hardly worth doing, but I'll do it. Build your confidence. Tangent theta minus 1 multiplied by cosine theta minus 1. See, what's hard about these is there's so many different solving techniques. It's all the different solving techniques from algebra that are all mixed into one. It's like, ooh, what technique am I using? Yeah, it's already set up. Thing 1 times thing 2 equals 0. It's already been factored for you. So we go to Dr. Seuss. Thing 1 equals 0, thing 2 equals 0. So tangent theta minus 1 equals 0, and then cosine theta minus 1 equals 0. That's what I told you. I said, well, it wasn't worth doing. Then I said, oh, I'll build your confidence up. So look around the entire circle. Oh, we got to solve first. So tangent equals 1, and cosine equals 1. So where does tangent equal 1?
45, 25.
Yep, remember how we always finding two values. 45 degrees and 225 degrees. And where does cosine equal 1? 0 and 360? Okay, and if you look, we're not going to include the 360 because of the roundedness here. That's not included. So I did look, they do round their end bracket so you don't use that number. So there's really only 3 values. If you put 360 in there, I wouldn't mark it wrong.
You would?
I would not mark it wrong. I said I would not.
Michaela just got really concerned.
Yeah. Whew. I wouldn't have picked up on that. Okay, that's fine. Example 2. Make it a little more challenging. Cosine squared equals sine squared plus 1. Okay. Goal is to solve. What would you do? You want to move the cosine squared over? Yes. Get it equal to 0, so we're going to subtract cosine squared. So I'll have 0 equals, and it doesn't matter, I'll put it on the end, sine squared plus 1 minus cosine squared.
Why did you write the example so far over there?
Because I wanted more room. Okay, now what? Could you factor this right now?
You can change the sine squared.
Oh. No, we can't.
Can we do a basket thing?
Nope, because there's nothing in this middle basket that's shared with these two. What we can do is use a Pythagorean identity to rewrite. Were you going to go there? Were you thinking that? Oh.
But I just want to know
That's
why
what I
you
was
are.
trying to say.
I want to know why that's happening.
Because I've got 2 different trig functions in here that's screwing it up. It's hard to solve for 2 things at once, and I can't factor it. So can I eliminate one of the trig functions?
Yes.
I can because of the Pythagorean identity. Let's rewrite for cosine squared. What is cosine squared equal to? Rearrange it and tell me what it equals. Do you agree that it equals 1 minus sine squared? Yes. So in place of this, I'm going to put in the quantity 1 minus sine squared. Are you okay with that? In place of cosine squared, that does equal 1 minus sine squared.
We got that off of our identity.
On the half sheet, yep.
Okay.
So what's in front of this? Why did I put parentheses there, do you think? Because of the minus.
Anyway,
I'm going to have to distribute that.
quick question. Did you do that so you had all signs in the
Yes. Because I was stuck. I couldn't factor what was there. So our trick was to get it all in terms of one thing. Let me distribute the negative. Oh, not theta. This was supposed to be 0. Oh, plus 1. Didn't want it to. So sine squared plus 1 minus 1 plus sine squared.
Oh, and then the ones will cancel.
The ones will cancel. What do I have left?
2 sine squared
2 sine squared.
equals 0.
Now what? Divide by 2. What's 0 divided by 2?
0.
0 equals sine squared.
Square root.
Plus and minus the square root of 0. That's still just 0. So where does sine equal 0?
0 degrees and 180 degrees.
0 degrees, 180 degrees. So if you can, get it down to one trig function by using a Pythagorean identity.
Wait, can you leave that up?
I will. 2 left today. We'll keep it so you have lots of time to work on these.
I can't figure it out.
It's like my mom's dying. I said I want to go home and die. I just said, no, going home and dying.
No dying on her watch today. Are we good, Lexi?
Yes. Why are you taking
Oh, sorry. Ah. Number 3. Cosine squared minus sine squared equals 0.
You gotta do that again.
We gotta do that again. That's a good trick. Anytime you can see those Pythagoreans jump out at you, do that. If you can get it down to one trig function, I think that's a good idea. So we can either replace the cosine squared or we can replace the sine squared. It doesn't matter.
Do the cosine.
All right, because that's out in front. What does cosine squared equal?
1 minus 9.
1 minus sine squared. I'm going to put it in parentheses just to keep the habit. Then I've got a minus sine squared equals 0. But what's out in front of my parentheses this time? A positive 1. So I can just drop the parentheses. So I'll have 1. What happens to my sine squared? Minus 2 sine squared.
Whoa, what did you just do? What did you just do?
A minus sine, combine them. Drop the parentheses and combine the signs.
So you can just drop
Squared.
parentheses.
Because there's a 1 out in front of here. Positive 1.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
barely?
Barely. And now we'll just solve for that sign. I'm going to subtract 1. Divide by a negative 2. Now what? Don't forget, plus or minus.
Why do I feel like these are easier than the ones that we did yesterday?
I don't know. I think that may be part of it. Plus or minus square root of 2 over 2, and then you got to look on your sheet for plus positive square root of 2 over 2 and negative square root. So you should be finding how many answers here? 4. 45.
135.
135.
225.
225. And 315. Okay, the last one is going to be a little bit trickier, harder one. I'm going to get a new sheet for it.
Wait, no.
Timing out.
I started doing it on my own and then I started doing it
Well, at least you were adventurous.
That wasn't too bad letting you wear yours. No, they were too expensive. Your family is like that. But you're gonna wear them all in the water.
Yeah, but you're gonna wear them all.
I'm ready.
Good. Little girl is good. Here we go. 5 secant squared equals
wow.
6 secant.
No, thank you.
Okay?
Equation to my level.
What would you do?
Subtract the.
Yep, let's get a 0 on the right-hand side here. So we'll subtract 6 secant theta from both sides. That leaves 5
-1.
secant squared theta. Nope.
No.
They are not like terms because one's a squared and one's not.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, can't all be winners.
Yes. Okay.
I actually wasn't even saying.
This is not a quadratic because it doesn't have the third term. But can I factor this?
Yeah,
What's my technique?
the back.
The baskets. Think of the baskets.
So you think of the baskets when you got two things
Mhm.
separated by
Yes.
a sign.
What can I take out of each basket? Secant can come out. What's left in the first basket?
5 theta.
5 secant. Okay.
5 secant minus 6.
Now that I've got it factored, it's a thing 1 times thing 2 equals 0.
What happened to that other?
What other, it's out here. If I distribute this back in, I will get exactly what I had in the basket.
Got it.
Okay. So, thing 1 would equal 0. And thing 2. Okay. What do we want to do with secant to turn it into something we can look up? Flip it. And we'll make cosine out of it. Will cosine ever equal 1 divided by 0? What's 1 divided by 0?
Undefined.
Undefined.
No, it will not.
Is cosine ever undefined?
No.
No, it is not. It is just a continuous function that goes up and down forever. No solution on this factor. Over here, we might get a solution. So we will add 6.
What do you do if it's allowed to be undefined?
Then you gotta look for it on your sheet.
Oh, that's what,
Divide by 5.
Yeah, I still don't get that. How is it allowed to be undefined?
Like tangent.
there's no eating.
Okay, so I've got a secant ratio. What do I want to turn it into?
Cosine.
A cosine ratio. What's the cosine going to equal?
5
5/6. I'm going to bet you're not going to find 5/6 on your circle sheet.
Wow.
But could cosine ever equal 5/6?
Yes.
Probably. How are we going to get this value?
Calculator.
Calculator. What are you going to do with the calculator? Inverse cosine of 5/6. Do the inverse cosine on both sides. So they're not always on there, but you got to check. Inverse cosine of 5/6.
I got 33.56. Approximate.
So we'll go 33.6 degrees. I just want to go with 34 to keep it simple. Let's go 34 to keep our life simple. Okay, how many answers? Listen for a second. If this was on the circle sheet, how many places would it have been? If it was on the circle sheet? There would have been 2 places. Every time we look up a number, we always find it in 2 spots on the circle sheet?
Yeah, so
So-
add 180.
No. This is cosine. And we know, because we have to find the second angle. What's nice about the circle sheet is we just look and we find both of them. Calculator, because of that inverse thing, only doing quadrants 1 and 2 for cosine, you've got to find the other spot where cosine is positive. So,
How did you know there's a second angle?
there always is. When we look it up, like this, when we look up tangent equals 1, positive 1, there's always going to be 2 spots, because tangent's positive in 2 quadrants.
Okay.
Or if it was negative 1, there's always 2. Cosine equaling 1, well, it was 360 again, but there's always 2 spots. All right? And down here, 0, 0, and 180, there's always 2 spots. So the calculator, when you have to divert and use the calculator, it only gives you one of the angles. You have to figure out where the other one is at. Well, it gave you 34 degrees.
Oh no, if you draw a triangle.
I'm not. Well, kind of. You need to tell me where else, what other quadrant is the cosine positive at?
4.
3.
Not 3,
4.
it's 4.
4. Why?
Because the x, cosine is the x value, so it's positive here. So there's another angle right here that has the exact same cosine ratio, 5 over 6, 5 over 6. How do I figure out this? Because I want the angle that goes from here all the way into the fourth quadrant.
Oh, 360 minus 34.
I want that angle measure. Well, the one in here is going to be 34. So Matt said 360 minus 34, and that will give it to you.
326.
So if you have to divert and use the calculator, you've got to figure out which quadrant contains your other angle with that same ratio and then calculate it. I hope you get a couple of these on the homework. Okay, so you have, for your homework enjoyment, keep you out of trouble, page 258, 27 to 45, odd. I'll put the answers up while you're working. You got them in the back of the book too, but